be stuck for a good while.
And quickly, do you have any idea just how many people actually evacuated, how many people are still down there, or you just don't know?
There's some people down there. I haven't talked to the sheriff's office. They've been down there all night just to get an idea who's still moving around and stuff. But I would say there's still going to be a handful or so of people that decide to just ride it out down there. Unfortunately, so
Sure.
hope
We spoke with
hopefully
Jefferson Parish
they say that.
earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chief. I
We were
apologize.
just saying we spoke with Jefferson Parish's president earlier, Cynthia Lee Shang, and she said they were already coordinating rescue efforts to be prepared after this storm passes. I know you were just mentioning some of the folks who stayed, how they're going to have to, just stay in place until this is over. Have you guys started coordinating efforts to rescue people who will need help after this passes?
We have our boats ready to go whenever once everything calms down. We're familiar with it. Hurricane Katrina, we did boat rescues down on the southern part of the parish and also on the east bank. And Hurricane Isaac, they issued a mandatory evacuation for the east bank of the parish, and they had 600 rescues that they did at that time. People didn't heed the warning, and we had to find shelter for here in Belchase for those 600 residents. And unfortunately, we had 2 deaths in Hurricane Isaac due to the storm surge, flooding and stuff. And then Hurricane Katrina, we had it was just under, I think, 10 deaths or so for residents that stayed for Katrina. So hopefully people listen to us. We've been telling them that but now's the time. Here it is on us right now.
We're seeing those impacts, definitely.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and your biggest concern at this point, I know we talked about that storm surge. Is that the biggest concern?
Right now, but it's going to be the heavy rainfall that we're going to get, the winds. Speaking to Kendall Graham a little bit ago, we're going to get 100+ mile an hour winds here in the Belchase
Yeah, if you
area.
get that kind of wind, that's going to tear places apart.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It's going to be a constant tropical storm force wind. So you're going to have 40, 50 mile an hour winds the whole day, and then once you start getting the gusts, it's just going to be devastating. That's just constant pounding on houses and everything. The electricity's, it's going to go out. It's going to be out for several weeks. With this, and people don't realize that how much it impacts the water system, the sewage system, your phones, cable, internet, all that stuff. You rely upon is based off of the electricity. So. It's going to be interesting, But
right.
the wind and the heavy rainfall we're going to be getting as well. So
yeah, it's all the above with you guys. All
Yes.
right, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Patrick Harvey with Plaquemines Parish, thank you so much for joining us.
thank y'all very much. Y'all take care.
All right, Duke Carter is in St. Bernard and is at the EOC right now.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, we are here in St. Bernard Parish. We're in the EOC, just trying to figure out exactly how parish leaders are keeping people safe, especially as we know Hurricane Ida is slowly making her way closer to the southeast Louisiana area. And so, again, we've just been talking with Guy McInnes, Parish President Guy McInnes, earlier this morning outside of the Parish Center here in St. Bernard Parish, and he says that they're going out and about just to make sure that those low-lying areas are not overflowing with water at this time, which is good news. And so we caught up with Parish President Guy McInnes earlier, right before he left, before checking in the area. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Go out and assess and make sure everything's buttoned up. Today's going to be a tough day. We're already starting to receive these winds, and in a few hours we're going to have some tropical storm winds. So we want to make sure we get out and assess and see what's going on. Make sure we don't have any flooded areas now before the storm, and see what's going on outside of the levee system. We're worried about that storm surge, when it's going to get here. So we're trying to get a good assessment of things in St. Bernard Parish so that we can get in our EOC and make sure we can manage it from there.
Here in the EOC with the boss man, just monitoring the situation, Mr. Ram. Good morning, sir. Can you give us a status update on what exactly we're experiencing here in St. Bernard Parish?
Okay, well, right now we're having gusts up in the upper part of St. Bernard, Chalmette area of 25, 27 miles an hour. Down in Hopedale, those areas getting up in the mid-30s. So by daylight, we should be experiencing tropical storm force winds, which are 39 and above. and by mid-morning, sustained tropical storm force winds and just deteriorating for the rest of the day.
And talk to us about, like, are y'all planning any emergency operations for people beyond the levee protection system, or pretty much everyone took heed to the warning?
Well, a lot of people outside the levee system, they've been there forever. They live there. They know what happens. They go through the same thing every year. They know the water comes up. They come inside, but we have search and rescue assets pre-staged by the fire department. We also have some Air National Guard search and rescue high water vehicles, Humvees, boats, and personnel staged in the parish just in case we need them.
Got it. But as of right now, though, everything is best as it is right now.
It's as good as it can be right now. We're just sitting back waiting for see what happens, and then we'll react and respond to whatever we need to do.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're tossing back to you. Thank you. We're tossing back to you in studio.
All right, Duke, thank you very much for those updates. We want to go over to Doug Mouton now. He is in Hammond, and take a look at the conditions there. A lot of the areas we checked in, they're starting to see some rain. Have you seen any rain yet, Doug?
No, not yet, Sheba. Of course, we're significantly north of where Duke is in Hammond. I will say this, the air was much muggier a couple hours ago. It is not a little bit of a breeze, but we are not seeing any outer bands here in Hammond yet. The one interesting thing is, as we've talked about people evacuating, is I think a lot of people have made the late decision to evacuate. Adam Ney, the photographer that I'm working with, he's our sports photographer. Adam's parents evacuated Metairie about 4 a.m. My sister Judy evacuated Metairie about
All right, Doug, apparently we don't have that sound. Anyway, it has been quite a night. I know the hospital was calling them back.
Yeah, and of course, all flights in and out of MSY have been canceled for today. Several were canceled yesterday evening, so a lot of those people who were trying to make it out, it really was just too late.
Yeah, and when you saw that mass of people, it just, you were just thinking there's no way all these people can get out. And, you know, you should have gone earlier if you could have. You know,
it was kind of the same way watching the interstates. I mean, the traffic was crazy.
And I saw some of your posts. I don't know what people are telling you, but I mean, so many people are asking me, should I stay or should I leave? And I said, if you have no reason to stay, why would you stay?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's too late now, but I definitely posted that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, same thing. I said, they try to follow us sometimes because they watch us. And I said, listen, we stay for work, and WWL is going to take care of us. If I could leave, if I had a choice, we weren't working here, I would be gone. So hopefully a lot of people took that advice and left.
Yeah, it was the same way in Katrina, you know, begging and pleading with people to leave, and they just didn't. Definitely. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of our coverage of Ida after this.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida. We're tracking this storm as it approaches the region.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, you went to bed. It was a Category 2. It is now a strong Category 4. And let's get right over to Jade and look at what you need to know this morning.
Well, good morning, Eric, and good morning, Sheba, and good morning to everyone. Here is a look at what you need to know ahead of Ida. We are getting new footage of what Hurricane Ida looks like from space. As you can see, this storm is huge. It is taking up a good portion of the Gulf. Ida strengthened into a Category 4 hurricane earlier this morning, and it's expected to make landfall later today. FEMA's Public Affairs Director and spokesperson has tweeted this message to the people of Louisiana. It reads, quote, "Louisiana, we have commodities, equipment, and personnel being pre-positioned and ready to be rapidly deployed. 1 million meals, 1.6 million liters of water, and 90 generators are on the way to help people and communities in the path of Hurricane Ida." President Biden has already approved emergency disaster declarations for Louisiana and Mississippi. And remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL TV app. It is free to download.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave. We've been continuing updates on the storm. The last one came at 5 a.m. and we learned, Eric, that this storm is even stronger.
Yeah, it is a massive storm, a big storm, just as the Weather Service had predicted, the National Hurricane Center predicted. This thing is a Category 4. Hopefully it will stay at this and never get any worse than this.
That's right. All right, we want to check in on the conditions in Lafitte. Let's get to our Asha Staples. She's there live now. Asha?
Good morning. Luckily, every time we seem to come on air, the rain just stops, but it was just pouring down a few minutes ago. But we are here. Things are pretty calm at the moment until we get that next band of rain in the area. But you can see winds are pretty calm as well. Nothing too crazy. The streets are wet, of course, and the streets are pretty clear as far as traffic. We have seen some police presence kind of circling the area, seeming to be monitoring things. But for the most part, things are looking pretty good at the moment. A lot of folks were actually debating about staying or leaving, just like across our area, and kind of too late to make the decision to try to leave. But for those who are riding it out, we definitely are with you and hope that you're staying safe. There is currently a mandatory evacuation that was in place actually outside of the levee protection area. So again, if you are kind of on the fence of leaving your home right now, is probably the best time to go ahead and do so. But we did hear from multiple Jefferson Parish officials throughout the last couple of days about the possibility and what they can expect from Hurricane Ida when it does reach our area. And again, they are saying that they've been preparing for whatever the storm may bring. Crews, they've been working and will continue to try to monitor the catch basins. They've been cleaning them out to make sure that the drainage will be able to move that water out when we do start to get that heavy rain. Of course, like many other areas, they're expecting a lot of wind, rain, possible flooding in spots, power outages, and are of course telling people that if they can leave, they should do so. And the emergency operations centers, they're also monitoring nursing homes. Entergy and other departments have pre-stage equipment for during and after the storm. And again, this is something that we have to just kind of wait, watch, and see what's going to exactly happen. But of course, we do know that flooding, outages are something that we have planned for and just waiting for it all to kind of happen. But for right now, things are pretty calm. We are getting a little bit of a drizzle coming up again, but the winds are pretty calm for the most part, and that rain is very light and moderate at this point. But for now, we're going to send it back to you guys and check back in with you as things start to change.
All right, thanks, Asha. That light rain is a pleasant thing to see right now. Right now, they're taking a live look at Bourbon Street. We've been checking in there. Things, of course, nice and quiet as people get in place, as Mayor LaToya Cantrell wanted people to do hours ago. So it looks like people are actually doing that.
Well, it is 5:30 on a Sunday morning, so normally,
well,
on regular days, yeah. We've seen this site during COVID when it's like this. There is rain outside. Let's get over to Michelle for the folks just joining us now. This is a Category 4 storm, Michelle. Is there anything right now that you see that could intensify this thing even more?
It's a possibility. I mean, it's still over very warm water, but again, the eye is extremely impressive here, Eric. Again, as it continues to churn over the very warm water, at this point, we're pretty confident in the forecast path of this system here. There's a strong possibility that it may jog a bit to the east, to the west. Of course, if it jogs to the west, the wind will be less intense, and of course it will take those higher surge values with it out to the west. And we'll go over all that in just a moment, and we'll continuously get updates hourly from this system here, from the National Hurricane Center. So as of 5 o'clock this morning, it is a strong Category 4 hurricane, a major storm heading towards us. And we're looking at winds of 145 miles per hour, but notice the wind gust. 165 miles per hour. That is extremely devastating. It's moving at a good rate to the northwest at 15 miles per hour. Now the placement of the center of the storm here, it is about 80 miles south-southeast of Grand Isle. So we are expecting landfall later on this afternoon around noon, 1 o'clock, again as a major storm. As we take a look at the forecast path here, here's what I'm talking about. So here's the National Hurricane Center projected path. You see that red line, and there's that forecast cone. It is continuing to shrink. So again, we are anticipating a bit, it could potentially jog to the east and jog to the west again as we get those current updates, but already starting to see those heavy rain bands pushing in along our coastal areas, and that will be the setup throughout the rest of the day, where the heavy tropical downpours, it will come in waves, but we are looking at a wet day, and I do expect this system to slow down a touch when it heads on land, and it will rapidly weaken. So as we take a look at the latest radar scan, you can see the heavy rain now approaching Slidell, starting to see those tropical downpours north of New Orleans, now heading into Houma. We're looking at light showers along the coastline, but of course we're going to see those tropical downpours continuing to push on shore, but the winds are starting to pick up across the area. There's that eye, extremely impressive here. Last time I measured it is about 20 miles in diameter. And again, you could see the wraparound rain bands. That's where you'll find the strongest winds around that eye wall. Of course, if that eye wall is closer to New Orleans, that's where we're going to see the intense winds. As I mentioned before, if it jogs to the west, the winds will be less intense. I'm not saying we're not going to see strong winds. We are going to see strong winds, but it will be less intense. So again, the latest forecast path here, when we're looking in terms of timing, it is expected to make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, packing winds of 145 miles per hour. And there is a chance it could continue to strengthen. Again, that's on the table. But as of right now, even if it does strengthen into a Category 5 hurricane, we're still looking at extensive impacts across the areas here along southeast Louisiana and then extending into the North Shore. So again, as this system moves on land, it is going to rapidly weaken, and we're looking at tropical downpours, heavy rain throughout the rest of the day. So we're looking at a long duration of rain. We're going to see some higher rain totals in a few spots, and then when that's coupled with the storm surge, we're looking at flash flooding across the area. That's what we're anticipating. And then as we head into Monday afternoon, early Tuesday morning, that system will be well away from us, and then we'll start seeing our weather here in the viewing area start to gradually improve. Now, as we take a look at the winds and wind gusts at the moment, they're really cranking up here. Buras, 24 mile per hour sustained winds. Notice the wind gusts, almost 50 miles per hour. Grand Isle, those winds are continuing to increase in that area. And then as we head to the lakefront, we have sustained winds at 24 miles per hour with higher wind gusts. And again, those winds will continue to intensify as the center of the storm makes landfall. So taking a look at the wind field here, I do expect the wind field to expand just a bit, and you could see the reds here. As I mentioned before, we're finding you'll find the strongest winds around that eye wall, and the strongest winds will extend about 40-50 miles out of that eye wall, and then we're looking at tropical storm force winds about 140 miles per hour miles from the center of the storm. So nonetheless, we are looking at a powerful hurricane. Those strong, significant winds will cause structural, also tree damage. We're also anticipating widespread power outages, again, as those winds continue to crank up. As you look at the time frame here, later on this afternoon, excuse me, or later on this evening, the winds will still remain pretty strong as the system moves inland. So we're looking at strong winds to continue throughout the rest of the day, also that heavy rain. And then as we head into tomorrow morning, still going to be breezy in a few spots. Many areas could potentially see those tropical storm force winds continue throughout much of tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Another really great graphic here, just to kind of give you a perspective. Areas that are highlighted in that white, we'll see wind speeds between 110 to 130 miles per hour. Again, that is sustained. when you factor in the wind gusts, some areas might see 140, 145 miles per hour, but the strongest wind gusts will be along the coast. That's where we'll see the storm surge.
And Michelle, if I can ask one question,
Sure.
when you talk about the intensity of a storm like this, and we make the obvious comparisons because it's coming in on the same day of the 16th anniversary of Katrina. Katrina was a much bigger storm. It was just, it was spread out along the entire Gulf. It filled the entire Gulf pretty much. This one is different, but it's going to land with a lot more intensity, and that's what you're kind of concerned about right now.
Oh, definitely. I was looking at some history. I was trying to find a storm that made landfall along southeast Louisiana. I couldn't find one, so this could potentially be the first.
With this kind of intensity.
Yeah, with this type of intensity, and also Hurricane Katrina, when it made landfall, it took a different path because I believe it made landfall near Triumph.
Well, it made a jog to the east,
yes,
and then went through Plaquemines Parish, and then up, and then we were on the city itself was on the weaker side of the storm.
There you go. But the thing about Hurricane Katrina is that it was a Category 5 hurricane, and it sat over the Gulf of Mexico, continuing to churn up that water.
Right.
So that's why the storm surge was so extensive. And then the levee protection system just couldn't handle that amount of storm surge. Thankfully, things have improved.
And we are hoping history, I mean, you don't wish this on anybody, but if this would take a jog toward the east, it would be much more devastating for New Orleans.
That's right, because we're going to be closer to that eye wall, and that's where the intense winds are located. Nonetheless, Eric, even if the system moves to the east or the west, we're still going to be on the wetter side of this system. So then the water becomes a concern because you have the storm surge, and then you have that heavy tropical rain coupled with that. So, and the lakes are going to rise as well as the rivers, and then you have all that rain on top of it. It's going to take some time for all of that water to drain out. So we are extremely concerned about the water associated with Hurricane Ida.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, that wind is going to just pound water into Lake Pontchartrain.
Exactly right, exactly right. And especially those low-lying areas around the lake really need to pay attention to what's going on, because I do anticipate that water to rise pretty fast, especially when those winds pick up, pushing in all that water. So again, as I mentioned before, this is a really good graphic just to give you an idea of what we're anticipating here in terms of wind speeds. And many areas will see 100+ winds when the center of the storm moves inland. And because the system is so strong, it is going to hold on to its hurricane status, potentially not a 4 or 3, maybe a 2 as it gets closer to Baton Rouge. But nonetheless, it's still going to be a very strong storm with those winds and also all the rain associated with that system. I do want to mention as well that the Storm Prediction Center has issued a level 2, a slight risk for our entire viewing area. And something that we haven't really talked about is when the system or when Ida makes landfall, those outer bands, we could see a few spin-ups. We could potentially see some tornadoes develop across the area too. So, I mean, that's another factor we have to take account. So I do want to go over parish by parish, just so you have an idea what to expect where you live. So as we look at the North Shore, rainfall between 6 to 10 inches of rain. Of course, we could see locally higher amounts. Winds between 70 to 80 miles per hour with stronger wind gusts up to 110. And then storm surge along Lake Pontchartrain, we're looking at between 5 to 8 feet. As we take a look at the Metro New Orleans area, 6 to 10 inches of rain. Of course, locally higher amounts are expected in a few spots. Winds between 90 to 110 mile per hour winds with wind gusts up to 120. And then, of course, storm surge 5 to 8. And then along the lakes there, Lake Bourne may see between 7 to 11 feet. River parishes I'm pretty concerned about as well, because many of y'all will see between 5 to 10 inches of rainfall. And then we're looking at wind speeds, or wind gusts rather, up to 130 miles per hour. So I am expecting tree damage, structural damages in a few areas. So again, keep that in mind, you know, for these areas. And of course, we'll take a deeper look at all of your parishes coming up in a bit.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. We want to take a live look in Houma right now. We've been talking about the storm making impacts there. This is Highway 57, and as we said, we're expecting these impacts closer to noon, even for our coastal areas. So right now, the worst that we've seen is really some rain. We saw some heavy winds when you get close to the lakefront, which is expected back on the South Shore. But again, this is a live look in Houma this morning, and right now, it's just drizzling.
And if the storm keeps on its same track, there's going to be a whole different scene in Houma. Houma is going to take a direct hit. If it stays on this track, it's going to be terrible there. I've got a friend down in Houma I was just texting with. He does have wind indicators on his boat, stuff like that. He said he will talk to us if and when that storm does hit there. All right. We're talking about the water pounding into the lake. A lot of that's going to go to the west side of the lake, around the Hammond area, Manchac, places like that. And that's where Doug Mouton is right now in Hammond.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah, hey, Eric, and I want to say this. You're talking about it from a historical perspective. I tell you, the storm to look back at is the Great Hurricane of 1915. This is before they had names, which entered as a Category 4 near Grand Isle, and it's the one that ripped apart the west side of Tangipahoa Parish, which is, I'm in Hammond now. Once we get some daylight, we're going to take a ride to that Napton, Frenier, Rudock area, which was wiped out by that hurricane of 1915. I think if you're talking about from a historical perspective, that's the one to maybe see how these tracks are similar. And that was one of the most destructive hurricanes in American history. We have seen people take this thing seriously in a way that maybe some other storms like the ones we had last year where you sort of knew it wasn't going to, you could see a whole different attitude towards this storm beginning about Friday. And I do think a lot of people made the decision to stay home, but then even changed their minds yesterday as Ida began taking those little wobbles east, which took us from maybe not so bad to right in the path. So we have seen a steady stream of people evacuating. Obviously, traffic was terrible all day yesterday, especially going west towards Houston. We also saw people gassing up and leaving in the middle of the night from here in Hammond, including the Hong family, who we caught up with. First of all, were you gonna stay until today?
No, our plans were to leave to Houston. We weren't sure how the hurricane will be. And then once we saw that it's going to be a Category 4, we were like, we got to go. We got to go.
And were you watching what the traffic situation was like today? Is that why you delayed?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, we have family members that left earlier today, and they just got there. And
how many hours?
It was about 12, 13 hours. So it's pretty insane. Yeah, I know. So for us, leaving around this time, we were hoping that it died down, but as we saw on the GPS, it's still traffic.
It's still traffic when you get close to there.
Yeah,
right.
Close to there. It was about like towards Beaumont. That's still trafficy over there.
So you guys made the decision at some point today, we're going to go, but let's go at 3 a.m. when the traffic's the lowest.
Yeah, I just felt like that's the smart thing to do. Just go when people is either decided that they're going to stay or I doubt there's a lot of people that's going around this time. So.
Or you hope so.
I hope so.
What is it about this storm that made you take it a little more seriously than the others we've had?
You know, I was that person that said, oh, Category 1, Category 2, oh, we're just gonna stay. But this time around is like, it's Category 4. I don't want to deal with no electricity, no food, no gas, whatever. You could always prepare, but it's a big storm this time around. So we just decide we're just gonna go.
Yeah, and who can blame them? And I think a lot of people have made that decision in the middle of the night. We're seeing a consistent breeze here now. We have not seen any outer bands here in Hammond. Obviously, we expect that to change as the day moves on. We're going to catch up with Parish President Robbie Miller in a few minutes. And again, once we get some daylight, we're going to head to that west side of Lake Pontchartrain and see what that looks like. For now, reporting live in Tangipahoa Parish in Hammond, Doug Mouton, Eyewitness News. Eric Sheep.
All right, Doug, thank you very much.
All right, we want to get over to our Meg Ferris now. She's been in Orleans Parish. Meg, where are you now and what conditions are you seeing?
So what we did, Sheba, was we were out on the lakefront, Lakeshore Drive around Canal Boulevard, and we started seeing a lot of lightning. And so we just said it wasn't safe, so we just came down more toward West End. We're still at Lake Pontchartrain, so we could get under one of these restaurant shelters or overhangs. As you can see, it's not making that much of a difference, but significantly since the last time we talked, the difference of the storm surge coming in and the wind buildup. Rick Neese is panning over right there by the lighthouse here at West End, and you can just see the waves just crashing up. I mean, it is, you can see it almost, you know, minute by minute. Water rising, water getting much more choppy, waves crashing, and of course the feeder bands, they're calm, and then as they come in, they're much stronger than the ones before. Eric was talking earlier about doctors being called back to Oxnard, and you know, that reminds me of something that we need to tell people. Right now we're worried about the storm, but you know, the emergency rooms are jam-packed. The ICUs, the hospitals are packed. In the last few weeks with the Delta variant, they've had to turn away people who have, you know, severe heart conditions and all that. So now's not the time to be aftermath of the storm too. When you get out to clean, that's when a lot of the injuries happen. There's just not a lot of room and personnel to go to the hospital, so don't do anything that's not very, very secure. And Eric, also, I wanted to continue a conversation we were having earlier with Peyton. Is he around where he can hear a question I have for him, please?
It's on. Hey, I can hear you, Meg.
Okay, so Peyton, earlier about 1 o'clock we were comparing what it felt like in your home with Zeta last October compared to what this could feel like. And then I heard you, of course, bring up the Katrina winds, and then I heard you bring up Betsy. Okay, I remember all of them. I remember what it felt like inside my home when I was a little girl, Betsy. So my question to you, and I know every storm is different and we can't emphasize that enough, but in New Orleans, in Metro, what is the difference in the wind that we're going to feel from Betsy compared to Katrina, compared to Zeta, compared to what we could feel? Again, not when it's coming on shore and all that type of thing. What we may feel in the metro area with all compared to those storms in our homes.
I think Betsy is a good representation perhaps what it could be like in the New Orleans metro, and even for the Bayou, for everyone really. It took a very similar path here, and the winds were about 140 miles per hour at landfall when Betsy moved on shore back in the 60s. So it could be a similar scenario. Of course, we didn't have the levee system we had back then, or that we have now, but wind-wise, you could be looking at something kind of similar here.
Okay, so what our homes will feel is what we felt during Betsy in the 60s, those same type of powerful winds.
Yeah.
So that's way more than Zeta and way more than Katrina, right?
Yeah, Katrina was a little bit more than Zeta. Zeta and Katrina still produced some significant winds, obviously, but Betsy came on shore down along the coast as a 140 mile per hour hurricane. So it was a Cat 4.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's just what I wanted people to get a perspective on the winds. I know the surge is a little bit different because of it was a 5 and it came up at a different angle, and we have a better outflow canal system, but I was just curious about the winds. Okay. Well, that's it from here. Reporting live from the lakefront, Meg Farris, Eyewitness News. Back to you.
All right, Meg. Thank you.
And with the power outages that are inevitable with Hurricane Ida, it is important to know whether or not your food left in the refrigerator is still safe to eat.
Abby Larico tells us what you need to know.
When the storm wipes out the power, it can also clear out your food supply, especially anything in the fridge. So here are some ways to keep your cool. The FDA recommends do not open your fridge or freezer for as long as possible. The closed doors trap the cold air for up to 4 hours in your fridge and up to 48 hours in a full freezer. If you can, put dry or blocked ice into the fridge. 50 pounds of ice can keep a fridge cold for 2 days. Foods meant to be refrigerated need to be tossed out after 4 hours stored at 40 degrees or warmer, even less time when it's really hot. Think closer to 2 hours with the forecasted hot temperatures in the 80s. One way to track how warm is too warm, freeze a cup of water, put a quarter on top. Keep it in the freezer. If the cup melts down so the quarter sinks to the bottom, temps have risen too high to save your food. It's time to pitch it. Store all foods high and dry in case of flooding, and if there's any chance something has come into contact with floodwaters, don't eat it. Stay safe. I'm Abby Larico, Eyewitness News.
Yeah, there are so many factors we have to think about here. You do have people with food in the fridge, and of course, they're trying to figure out how long that will last and how long the power will be out if we lose it.
And again, when in doubt, do without. And the other thing, if you don't open the fridge, it'll stay for a little longer. The freezer the same way. And the one thing with a storm like this, if there are 140-mile-an-hour winds, it's going to do a lot of roof damage, a lot of structural damage. In a named storm, a lot of companies, insurance companies, some of the big ones, charge up to a 5% deductible. So, I mean, if you have your house insured for a couple of $100,000, that's like a $10,000 deductible.
Wow.
So if you have $9,000 in damage, that all comes out of your pocket.
Yeah, and the hard thing is now people are just trying to brace for the storm, survive the storm, get through it. That is the sad part, though. Once this all clears up, we have to take a look at the damage and destruction left behind, and hopefully it's better than what we're imagining it'll be.
And again, I go back to a storm like Cindy, which was, at the time, a tropical storm right before Katrina. And it did so much damage, it knocked the power out of 250,000 people. On my way into work that morning, that was back in 2005, Claiborne was littered with debris and stuff like that. Lights were out all over the place. And it was a mess. And they finally upgraded that, I think a year or so later, to a Category 1 storm. But this is a Category 4.
Yeah, it is a Category 4.
There is a huge difference. And Peyton's going to have some new information coming up about the pressure within that eye dropping, and it's dropping significantly.
It's strengthening even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll have more of our continuing coverage and that latest information from Peyton after the break.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
And good morning once again. Thank you for joining us for this 6 o'clock hour of our special coverage of Hurricane Ida, coming on the day, the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And the news we're getting right now is not good.
Yeah, we're getting the latest update on the storm, and we're learning that it's strengthening even more.
Let's get straight over to Peyton for the very latest.
Yeah, guys, honestly, it's shocking to believe how fast this thing is strengthening. Look at the current winds. This is still a Category 4, 150 mile per hour sustained winds now. A Category 5 is 157. This is close to becoming a Category 5 here. And look at our pressure, 935 millibars. I've never seen pressure drop so fast in a hurricane. It's happened, but I just can't think of any. And 75 miles south of Grand Isle at this point. So it's still moving northwest at 15. This thing is on the verge of becoming a Category 5 hurricane as it makes its way towards the north. Now, is it possible this continues to strengthen? It is. The trends we've seen since 1 a.m., it is just crazy how fast this thing has intensified as it's made its way towards the Louisiana coast. The track still brings it into parts of lower Terrebonne, lower Lafourche, and going over into lower Jefferson to near Plaquemines. Anywhere in here, landfall remains possible. The eye itself has been running just a hair to the north and northeast of it, so it's possible that the exact eye or the center of it tracks closer to Lafourche Parish, maybe even up in towards the Grand Isle area. This could be a strong Cat 4 on the verge of becoming a 5, making landfall in southeast Louisiana. We have never had a hurricane this strong, with going back at least to the early 1900s, this strong making landfall. Betsy was 140 miles per hour. The great, that one that Doug was talking about was 145 miles per hour. This could very well be one of the strongest hurricanes we've ever experienced through parts of our area. Eric?
And explain just why that drop in millibar is so important for not just the intensity, but the depth of this storm.
Yeah, so I was just talking to you with this off air, and so as pressure drops, the winds are going to respond. As pressure is dropping, winds naturally pick up. Low pressure here, and that high pressure in the air is just funneling down into this thing. Think of it as you're pulling down on a balloon and the water's rushing in. So the deeper it goes, the faster the water is going to go, and the faster the winds are going to go. Now, this interesting fact a meteorologist friend had posted, this is Ida's central pressure has dropped 50 millibars in 22 hours. That qualifies this as rapid deepening. Now, rapid deepening is more extensive than rapid intensifying. Now, rapid deepening with that pressure dropping, get this, only 11 hurricanes on record in the Atlantic have deepened at 50 millibars in 22 hours or faster.
And Peyton, quickly explain why that is so significant.
Because, well, one thing, it's nearly a Cat 5. 2, there's a big difference between a weakening hurricane at landfall and a strengthening hurricane at landfall. A strengthening hurricane at landfall is going to have a much bigger punch than a weakening one. It's ramping up all the way until landfall, and that is very possible with this storm as it continues to move towards the north and west. So at this point, you know, we talked about this a couple days ago. People were saying, is a Cat 5 possible? We said it's not out of the question. And it's not. I mean, it's only 7 miles per hour off. And the way this thing has strengthened all the way since 1 a.m. when I came in, it was a Category 2, and then it was a 3, and then it was a 4 an hour later, and now it's a strong 4. This thing will likely continue to intensify as it makes its way towards our coastal areas.
And what are the chances that this thing could still move a little? We're talking about the wobbling. We know it's going to wobble back and forth, but when the winds get this strong, is that wind field expanding any around that eye?
Yeah, so the wind field's naturally expanding. It contracts and expands in a hurricane. One thing that could happen with this one, and this happens in really intense hurricanes, they go through these things called eye wall replacement cycles, and that's what happened to Katrina. So Katrina was a Cat 5, and remember, it weakened. It went through an eye wall replacement cycle during that process, and that weakens it. And what it does is it allows that wind field to spread out, and then that eye has to contract again. So as you've seen ice skaters, they spin around, and when they bring their arms in, they go faster, right? So a hurricane's essentially the same. When the eye is bigger here and it's contracting, it's going to go faster and faster and faster. And then you'll get a new eye wall forming, and that's the replacement cycle. And then that new eye wall will be bigger, the winds will weaken just a little bit, and then it will contract back down and the winds will strengthen. I think we got a tornado warning or a tornado watch. I want to check on something real quick. Okay, we have a tornado watch. So we're going to be watching for that over the next throughout today as possibly isolated tornadoes. So that watch will be in effect for the area today. So we'll be watching not only the hurricane conditions, but of course any of these bands could produce some spin-ups.
And again, with the speed this thing is traveling right now, how much time does it have to intensify to a Cat 5 or change course any?
It's got about 5 to 6 more hours over water. It's running into our shallow waters. Now the waters out here are pretty shallow, right? As you go out, you're not into the deep ocean water. So it'll be interesting to see, do we get any upwelling? And upwelling is when an intense hurricane like this that's moving at a fairly, it's not Holland, but it's not Stalin. And it can upwell some water, that cooler water, and that can sometimes decrease it or cap off the intensification process. It's possible it does that, but it's not a guarantee. And it's not doing it right now.
And are those waters warmer than some of the deeper water? Because it is
the
shallow?
Surface, oh yeah, this water up here gets to the upper 80s to near 90 degrees.
And so that's not good either.
No, it's an immediate hot temperature, but you know, when you're talking about warm temperatures and the waters, you got to have great wind shear or low wind shear, not a lot of dry air, and we obviously don't have that. So that all coupled together is why we are seeing this, and we did expect it to intensify rapidly up until landfall. So this is all expected. It's just a little bit stronger than what we were thinking it was going to get.
And Payne, you said a moment ago, we've never had a storm this strong make landfall in Louisiana, which I think is such a strong statement from a place that has seen Katrinas and Betsy's. Meg was just naming some of the big storms that she's been through. Everybody's looking for a comparison. So what is the strongest storm we've had make landfall?
In Louisiana, it was Laura last year, actually. It was 150, so it was the same as what it's at right now. In our area, going back to at least, and off the top of my head, I can't think of what we've had 2 1850 hurricanes that were pretty significant, but I can't think of the names or the speeds. But going back to at least the 1915 that Doug was mentioning, the Great Hurricane of 1915, took a similar path as Ida. Betsy also is going to take, or this is taking a similar path as Betsy. Betsy was a Cat 4, but it was 140 miles an hour at landfall.
Wow.
The 1915 one, I believe, was 145 miles per hour at landfall. So we have never had at least going back to the 1900s, a 150 plus mile per hour hurricane. And we've actually never had a Category 5 make landfall in Louisiana.
No.
Wow.
Camille made landfall in Mississippi, but it was in Bay St. Louis, Waveland, so it didn't classify as here. And it kind of skirted, the eye wall of Camille skirted down here towards Buras, but the actual eye did not make landfall, the center of it.
And I know you don't expect it to shift very much, if at all, before it makes landfall, but I know you were also surprised that the speed is up to 150 so fast.
Yeah.
Would that help shift it at all?
The speed, sometimes, you know, the speed of these things in the long term, we watch the strength and what that's going to do to the steering pattern. This thing could curve a little bit sooner. That is certainly possible. We've seen that with hurricanes in the past. But right now, if you look at our trends, it's still running right on the right side. So I think it's headed more towards Lafourche and Lower Jefferson. It may wobble, though, and we talk about these wobbles. You know, wobbles are important at this point. They're not important when you're talking about the forecast 5 days out because we can't detect the wobbles. But when you get to this point, you really got to watch and see how this thing winds its way towards the coast. It could still make landfall near Plaquemines, Lower Jefferson, Grand Isle. Lafourche is here, Port Fourchon. Port Fourchon's right dead line in the center of it right there. And then so is Houma in the current forecast.
And Peyton, when we talk about it intensifying like this, does that mean a bigger storm surge? Will the storm surge estimates increase because of this?
Yeah, they would. Now, the storm surge is dependent on a couple different things. It has to do with about 3 different factors, really. The 2 we're watching are the intensity, how fast the winds are, but the structure of the wind field. Eric, we were talking earlier about why Katrina was such a devastating storm with surge, but it was only it was a Category 3 at landfall.
Yeah, and it was east of us. We were on the west side.
Yeah, it's because the wind field was giant. It was almost, I think, double of what we got here. And that's because it was a giant Category 5 in the Gulf of Mexico, and that wind field just had so much time to grow. This wind field, it's a decent wind field, but it's not nearly the size of Katrina. So the bigger the wind field, the more water it can push, but the stronger the winds, also the more water it can push. So it kind of is a trade-off there. But more so, the stronger the winds get, the storm surge will go up. That's why we've seen our estimates increase to 16 feet now.
And when you talk about the intensity of this wind, as you said, we've never had a Cat 5 hit Louisiana. When you've got, even if it stays a strong hurricane or a strong Category 4 at 150 mile an hour, sustained winds, that just wreaks havoc on everything in its path.
Yeah, it does. And you know, the strongest winds, this 150, maybe it ends up being 155, that would still be a Cat 4, or your gusts, which are 165 to 170. That's going to be near the center of the storm on the eastern eye wall here as it makes landfall. So the most intense part is going to be, I mean, not everyone's going to see 150 mile an hour winds. That will decrease pretty quickly, but there is a good chance a lot of our area does see over 100, maybe 120 mile per hour wind gusts. So you got to prepare for that. I hope you've prepared for it because you're basically out of time at this point, Eric.
All right, thank you very much, Peyton.
All right, some scary updates there as we're about 6 hours from landfall on this storm, and we continue to track updates from across the region as this storm gets closer.
Yeah, as we said, Ida is now a Category 4 storm, a strong 4. Its winds up to 150 miles an hour, just 7 miles an hour away from being a Cat 5, Leslie.
And let's get over to Jade Cunningham now with some things we need to know at this hour.
Well, here's a look at what you need to know ahead of the storm. The time to evacuate is over. If you're still in southeast Louisiana this morning, you need to shelter in place for the foreseeable future. Officials are stressing for people to stay inside during and after the storm. Down power lines and other issues can make it dangerous to leave. Let the city and other responders assess the damage first. Today is the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and Mayor LaToya Cantrell says New Orleans is much better prepared to handle the storm now than it was 16 years ago. In a Facebook post, Cantrell noted more than $14 billion worth of investments have been made to the levee protection system. She also says people in New Orleans are safer than they have ever been before. And with Hurricane Ida intensifying to a Category 4, a strong Category 4, you can expect significant power outages that may last weeks. Energy says they are mobilizing a storm team of approximately 16,000 members to address power outages from Ida. Based on historical restoration times, customers in the direct path of a storm as intense as Ida could experience outages for more than 3 weeks. Guys?
All right, Jade, thank you very much. We want to get back over to our Danny Monteverde now and check in with him.
He's down in Terrebonne Parish. And Danny, what are you seeing down there?
Hey, Eric. Hey, Sheba. Good morning. We are in Terrebonne Parish. We're in Gray, Louisiana, to be precise, at the Terrebonne Emergency Operations Center. And what we're looking at right now, it's just kind of a light rain so far. The wind kind of comes and goes, and the rain has been a little heavier at times, but nothing too severe at this point. And we are here with Mark Black, who's the spokesman for the Parish Emergency Operations Center. How are you feeling so far?
Well, feeling very good right now, Danny, but it's going to pick up. Things are going to get worse during the day based on what we've seen in terms of projections, but you know, all we can do is just, you know, wait it out for right now. I really have nothing, we have no reports coming in from anywhere down the bayou, so I can't share anything with you because I don't have it right now.
And but right now, again, if someone is watching this, we're starting to get to the earliest points of daylight. I guess the message is don't let your guard down. It may not be a lot right now, but as the day goes on, this is going to change.
Yes, it will. This is, you can be lulled into perhaps a false sense of security if you, based on what's going on right now, but it will get worse throughout the day, more wind, more rain. So please don't let your guard down.
And you and I spoke earlier this morning. You said really it's not the water that's a concern for you guys, it's the wind. And talk a little bit about why that is.
Well, with a Cat 4 wind range, we expect there'll be a lot of damage down trees, roofs, shingles, things like that, perhaps boats tossed about. That's where our real concern is right now with the wind. So we're hoping that, you know, we're hoping the surge is not that great, and based on the track we've seen, that we may be okay on the surge.
And I was going to mention the track too, because from what I've seen and so far, it looks like it has shifted a little bit east, if I'm getting the latest information correct. You never want to see it go anywhere. We were talking before, the best place it can go is away. But for Terrebonne Parish in particular, if it does shift east, What does that mean for you guys here in Terrebonne?
Well, it means that the storm surge should not be as great as it was originally projected, which was around 15 feet, which would have given us some severe problems.
And again, for the people here in Terrebonne, well, I guess in theory there shouldn't be anyone here in Terrebonne. You guys issued the evacuation order, and again, if anyone stayed, they're supposed to be indoors.
That's correct. And I'm sure at some point law enforcement will be off the streets, but right now they're out and about making sure that if you have to travel, you may be stopped. If it's legitimate, I'm sure law enforcement will allow you to proceed.
But by and large, this is not the day to get out and do things. It's the day to stay home, and it's going to be a long day for a lot of people, but staying home is the safest thing to do right now.
That's absolutely correct. It will be a long day for us over here at the EOC, that's for sure.
All right, well, Mark Black, the spokesman for the EOC here in Terrebonne Parish, thanks for the time.
You're welcome.
And again, that is the latest here live in Terrebonne Parish this morning. Again, we're looking at, actually, in this time we've been talking to Mart, the rain looks like it's slacked up just a little bit. But again, the big message is don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. As we've heard ad nauseum, unfortunately, over the past about 24 hours or so, it seems, things are going to get bad in the next little bit, and just, do what you can to stay safe. That is the latest for now. Reporting live in Terrebonne Parish, Danny Monteverde, Eyewitness News.
Danny, thank you very much. We want to take a look at what's happening right now. We're keeping a close eye on Houma, of course, the Bayou parishes. They'll take the brunt of it. Not exactly sure where Hurricane Ida, that is a Category 4 with 150-mile-per-hour sustained winds, where it'll make landfall. But once again, we are looking at Houma right now.
And let's switch over to the western part of the state to Lake Charles. And you can see the Interstate 10 there, people still going. Trying to get out of this danger area. Lake Charles, poor Lake Charles, just last year was a horrific year for them for hurricanes, and the traffic obviously is lightened up now, but they are hoping against all hope that this thing does not go any farther west, because they have had so much problems. But no matter where it goes, we're all going to feel some of it. I mean, this is a big storm.
Traffic looks significantly better there, Eric. We were looking at this a couple of hours ago, and people were still at a standstill. Of course, these were the folks, most of them going to west, to Texas, towards
to
the
Houston, places
area.
like that. And and then it was yesterday. It was also going east. I have a lot of friends who are texting me now from Florida, and they had gotten out to Pensacola, Destin, Panama City,
Did
all
it
places
take them
like that.
just as long as the folks going west?
It depended on when they left.
Sure, right.
Some of them, I saw some of the
better.
when Katie and Sharice were on yesterday, they were showing shots of the twin spans going to Slidell, and it was just back-to-back traffic going east, nothing coming west. And like when I came in yesterday on that flight, it was a very empty flight. But it was a big plane. It was a 757. They were bringing bigger planes in to try and get as many people out as they could.
Right.
Because, I mean, the airlines have had a rough time with cancellations, rescheduling, and so much on account of COVID. All of a sudden, you were seeing packed planes, packed airports. Then there were reports that it had dropped off a bit because people were getting more worried about traveling during the surge. And then yesterday, to see that scene at Armstrong International Airport.
That's right. You sent those pictures in, and there was absolutely no social distancing. It was
well,
just
there was no way to.
Oh, absolutely. But on the height of the pandemic, and you throw in a hurricane, it just really.
Well, and a lot of times it is tough to get through security anyway. Even on a normal day, this was a very abnormal day.
Sure.
I mean, there was nobody coming into the airport to speak. But boy, people were trying to get out in droves, and that line that went all the way up the stairs to the next level just to get through security.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And then, of course, we were watching the interstates going west. We have people taking 12 hours to get to Houston, Texas. We have some of our staff members' families still trying to make it to Texas this morning. So, of course, we're wishing them the best. And then yesterday, everyone was upset, saying, where's Contraflow? They were turning things political. And a lot of people saying, listen, our officials said it was just too late for that. They did not have time to execute that plan.
And the thing that I've gotten so irritated with friends, and I remember doing the same thing in Katrina 16 years ago, trying to get people to say, look, you do not need to stay. And after a while, especially with Katrina, because Katrina was a Cat 5, it looked like it was coming straight for us. And I said, there are only two kinds of people to stay: people who have to and stupid people. If you don't have to stay, don't. I mean, clearly there are people who couldn't make it out. They had no way to get out.
And that's who you worry about the most, the people who don't have transportation,
and they have
who
no
don't have a
choice.
plan for pets, who don't have money to leave. You do feel terrible for them because now this storm is very close and they're going to feel the impacts of it.
But for people who have the means, why would you stay when there's a storm like this? I don't let my family stay.
No, my family's not here either.
And Eric, how are you feeling about this one? Because we talked to Meg, we talked to Doug, who, just like you, have been through a lot of storms. They're veterans at this, and they both seem to have this real uneasy feeling.
Well, it's a Category 4 storm that could be a Category 5 hitting the coast of Louisiana. And as Peyton and I were talking a little while ago, let's say it does get to 157 and a Category 5. Depending on where it comes in, if it comes in over that marshland, that's still over a lot of water.
Right.
It doesn't dissipate that fast. It takes other things to get in the way. And when you have sustained winds, if you've ever seen some of these insurance videos where they show a sustained wind of 130, 140, 150 miles an hour, it rips houses apart. It rips roofs off. It does so much damage, and then that storm surge gets even bigger. And that's what got us in Hurricane Katrina. In the wee hours of the morning on Monday, the 29th, 16 years ago, I was on the phone with Walter Maestri from Jefferson Parish with their EOC, and we thought we had dodged the bullet. And you know, it made a jog to the east, and we thought we had missed it. We just didn't realize that the Category 3 storm that hit still had Category 5 storm surge that just pounded water into the lake. I remember flying over the next day in a helicopter, and to see what it had done to the old twin spans, it was like they were thrown about like pieces of balsa wood by the storm.
Yeah, and we're watching that live look at the lakefront now. Take a look at these waves. They've definitely picked up. We've been there for several hours this morning. Our Meg Ferris has been showing us the conditions. And you're seeing a little bit of that black on the side of the camera. That's a bag over the camera just because it's starting to get rainy and windy out there to protect the equipment.
Yeah, and you see how our camera operator's just kind of getting bounced around. And this is at 6:20. We're expecting it to make landfall way south of us at noon, and you're already starting to see.
And Peyton, what are your thoughts on this right now as you see these pictures?
Real quick, guys, I need to mention a new tornado warning that was just issued for parts of Mississippi. If we can take Max Full really quick, or our weather source, that would be great, so I can go in and just get some briefly some details on this tornado warning that has been issued for parts of Hancock and parts of Harrison County here. And we are expecting to continue to see some of these tornado warnings as these outer bands move in. So this is going to include Bay St. Louis. It's going to include up towards Diamond Head. It's going to include Pass Christian and parts of Long Beach up towards Cuevas. You can see there as this band moves on shore, and it goes until 6:45. So we'll be tracking this for you. We'll be keeping an eye on it, but we could be looking at a tornado moving inland near the Pass Christian area pretty soon as this makes its way over towards the north and east. It's of course going to be moving fast. It's moving northwest at 35 miles per hour. So if you're watching us in Bay St. Louis, if you're watching us in Waveland, Diamond Head, kind of southern parts of the Kill towards I-10, Pass Christian, Cuevas, you need to be in your tornado safe spot right now as we are tracking a potential tornado that's going to be right there near the coast. This is going to be moving towards the Henderson Point area and crossing near the bridge there over Bay St. Louis, or the St. Louis Bay, and then making its way up into the bay and heading up towards Diamond Head and Shoreline Park. So tornado warning once again until 6:45 a.m. It's going to be moving northwest at 35 miles an hour, heading up towards Pass Christian and then up towards Bay St. Louis, to Shoreline and Diamond Head area. And once again, we'll be keeping an eye on that for you, but just be in your tornado safe spot.
And we do have some power outages already. About 3,000 people without power. This is Cleco on the North Shore near Slidell. So we're already starting to see the power outages.
And Peyton, way in there, are we seeing enough wind for that to be causing power outages yet?
Yeah, well, you know, it doesn't take much to get some power outages down here.
That's true.
But we've had some wind gusts, 31 in Slidell.
Okay.
I don't know if they can take my weather source. These are some impressive winds that are just off the mouth of the river. We're gusting now to 104 off the Southwest Pass. Pilot Station East is 104. And I want you to remember, these are somewhat elevated. They're not at the sea surface, so these are going to be a little bit lower towards the surface of the water. But it just shows you that Look at Grand Isle. They're gusting to 46. We got tropical storm conditions now starting in Grand Isle. And boy, it's going to get rough there over the next couple of hours. The worst is going to be moving in throughout the morning, and then the worst will be closer to 11, noon, 1, and through the rest of the afternoon. It's going to be bad down there. So it is here.
Yeah.
It is here.
Unfortunately, I don't know how many people you've talked to about this, but you know, last year we dodged so many storms.
Yeah.
We dodged so many storms last year, and people get a little bit complacent and think, well, maybe we'll dodge this one too. And if it's coming into Houma, gee, how does that affect me if I'm in the city or if I'm in Jefferson Parish or St. Bernard or wherever?
You know, we live in an area where everyone's going to see different impacts in some sort of way, right? The North Shore is concerned, yes, with winds and losing power, maybe a little surge on the lake of 5 to 8 feet, but rivers on the North Shore are a big concern because we could see 10 to 15 inches of rain. New Orleans, what are we most concerned about? Rain. Fortunately, we have our Great Levee System now, and the rainfall is going to be a big problem. Of course, infrastructure, when you start talking about winds, I guarantee you we're going to lose a lot of power across the area.
And let me add that we're just getting an update. We have 5,400 people without power in the state right now. The majority of those in Jefferson Parish, we're seeing about 2,700 outages there. And of course, we just expect this number to grow as more impacts get closer.
It'll be, I can't remember what it was during Zeta, but it was hundreds
it's going to be big. And you're talking about the improved levee system. I mean, they've spent like $15 billion on a hurricane protection system that is rated to a 100-year storm, a Category 3. This is not a Category 3 storm. No. This could be tested to the limits.
It could. Something interesting, when we start talking about, you know, you always hear like a 100-year storm, a 200-year storm.
That's out the window these days.
Well, and what that means, it doesn't mean a storm is likely to happen every 100 years. It's just a weird term someone came up with to help explain it. It means there's like a 1% chance of it happening in a given year. So it doesn't necessarily mean it can only happen once 100 years. It just means it's not very likely. And yeah, storms like this are not very likely down here. It's kind of odd that we got hit with a Category 3 last year in a similar spot.
Right.
And we're dealing with a Cat 4 on the verge of becoming a Cat 5 moving on in. So as Eric said, parts of our area are going to be tested to the limits. There are other areas down along the coast, they don't have protection. And they are going to feel, this is the type of storm where we start to use the word catastrophic, where areas of the coast might not be left. Grand Isle, Port Fourchon. We don't know what it's going to look like when this thing has moved through by the end of this afternoon.
And excuse me, have we jumped up on our numbers for the storm surge? Has that come through yet?
The latest I looked, we were at 12 to 16. That was as of 4 a.m.
That was way before we got this
It is, and you got to remember, they have to run these models, and these models, it takes a second for them to run sometimes. So I can guarantee you they're plugging new numbers in here because this is already overachieving what they had forecasted. And I can almost bet our storm surge goes up for areas west of Plaquemines Parish. So Lower Jefferson, Lafourche, we're probably going to see those storm surge numbers go up. Right now they're 12 to 16. I wouldn't be surprised if they go up just a little bit. So we're talking closer to maybe 17, 18. We don't have that yet, but with the intensity change, it's possible.
Oof. We're still about 6 hours away from landfall. Is there any possibility outside of a miracle that this weakens?
There's always a possibility. Hurricane intensity is a very finicky thing. They can fluctuate very quickly. Now, when it's this strong, the chance of it rapidly weakening into something that's not significant is very low. That's just not going to happen at this point. It's 70 miles off the coast of Grand Isle, and we're already feeling 100+ mile-per-hour winds off the mouth of the river here. So it's going to bring significant impacts. It's going to probably stay a Category 4. I mean, it's a strong Cat 4. Right now, the big question I have is it going to continue to strengthen? It's possible, and it looks like it is continuing to strengthen.
Yeah, when you said that those millibars were dropping at a rate you had never seen it before,
935.
That's telling.
What, a couple days ago we were in the thousands still. It was a tropical depression. I mean, unbelievable.
And I have a question. We're already starting to see these power outages, and Eric, you're probably the person who could answer this. We have so many hospitals in the metro area and just in our viewing area in general, packed with COVID, patients and packed to capacity. What happens when hospitals start losing power? They all have generators that are good enough?
They do have generators, and depending on how much they've got, a lot of times it's just for parts of the hospital, but they try to keep those. But with hospitals, with ICUs so full of COVID patients, what do you do if there are mass casualties in a hurricane like this? I mean, where do you go? Do you set up triage tents? in parking lots. I mean, it could be potentially a huge problem. And the closer you are to the center of that storm, and if it comes in, let's say it comes in through Houma down in Terrebonne Parish, the river parishes, Jefferson Parish, are going to feel a lot worse than they are in New Orleans East or someplace like that.
And Jefferson Parish and Plaquemines Parish officials spoke with us earlier. They've already started to prepare for rescue operations when this passes, because they know some people have stayed behind in areas that they really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about sorry, I'm kind of querying some of our velocities here. I'm watching that tornado warning. By the way, let me mention that again. Tornado warning for Bay St. Louis, Diamond Head, Pasch Christian. It goes until 6:45. We're watching an area of rotation. Just looking at radar, we don't have anything definite, but it is possible that we get these quick spin-up tornadoes. They can sometimes be significant. If you remember back in Hurricane Andrew, back in 1992, LaPlace got hit by a tornado in one of those outer bands of Andrew. So we will be watching these for you, and if you are under a tornado warning, do take it seriously. So Bay St. Louis, tornado safe spot. Pasch Christian, tornado safe spot right now.
All right, so again, we're going to take a break?
We're going to reset for a second.
Pardon me?
Let's pause. We're going to reset for a second.
Okay.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
If you are just joining us, we continue our coverage of Hurricane Ida, which is now a very strong Category 4, continuing to intensify.
Yeah, it's now 6:30, and we will be on all day watching this. As Peyton mentioned a few minutes ago, this thing has intensified. The millibars dropped precipitously, and then we're up to 150-mile-an-hour sustained winds. That's only 7 miles away from this being a major Category 5 storm. And we have, Peyton, I think you said we have never had a Category 5 hit the coast of Louisiana.
Yeah, we have it,
Eric. His mic's not on yet, but that's exactly
Yeah.
what he said. And I was telling him earlier, we kind of get lost in some of the terminology, millibars and pressure. So I was asking him to remind us exactly what that means. He says it means when the pressure drops, it's a sign that the storm is intensifying, which is what we keep seeing here.
And it is done so fastly, too.
Well, and that's what's scary. And you get down to what a Hurricane Katrina was like. It was down to like 900 millibars.
Right. So we're very close to that.
Yeah, we're getting close to that. And there's still time. I mean, there's still several hours before we actually make landfall, wherever that's going to be. But wherever it's going to be, it is going to be rough.
That's right.
We do have reporters we'll check in with momentarily out live all around our area. But first, let's check in with Jade Cunningham with things you need to know.
Well, good morning. Here are some updates from around the area. Remember to check in on loved ones today to make sure they're prepared for the storm. You should also make sure you have a plan for keeping your pets safe. If they normally stay outside, please bring them inside. The CEO of Louisiana SPCA says none of the shelters in the area are able to receive any more pets. They are closed. If you come across a displaced pet in the coming days, plan to take care of them at your home until the shelters reopen. New Orleans and Jefferson Parish officials have made it clear their drainage pumps are ready to go ahead of Hurricane Ida. 96 out of 99 pumps are working in New Orleans. The executive director of Sewerage and Water Board says Pump Station 6 along the 17th Street Canal and Pump Station 7 on the Orleans Avenue Canal should have the firepower to pick up the slack for the whole Lakeview area and help drain water in West End. Meanwhile, in Jefferson Parish, officials say 194 out of their 195 drainage pumps are working. Remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL TV app. It is free and in your app store.
All right, Jade. Thank you very much.
much.
Now let's head to the North Shore. Doug Mouton is standing by, and Tangipahoa with the parish president there. Hey, Doug.
Yeah, hey, Leslie, I'm here with Robbie Miller, of course, Tangipahoa Parish President. Robbie, look, this thing is coming right at Tangipahoa Parish, right? What is your worst fear for the wind punch? The whole parish?
Well, yes. I mean, they're telling the Weather Center's telling us from the bottom of the parish to the top we'll have 110 plus mile-an-hour winds, and that was yesterday's report. So if it's a Category 5, it could still be more than 110 plus gust. So we have a lot of trees. We've had a lot of rain, so we're concerned that those roots are not going to hold. And we saw Lake Charles. And I think that if this comes through like it is, although we're still praying, then we could see a lot of debris, a lot of damaged power lines. We could be recovering for quite a while.
Yeah, Robbie and a large group of you from Tangipahoa Parish went to Lake Charles last year after Hurricane Laura, and unfortunately, it's a lesson that we're going to need later today, right?
Well, it sure looks that way. And then we've made updates to our plan on how to respond with the information we got from there. So it's good that we did that. And our citizens need to know we're ready. We've updated. As soon as this thing clears, we're going to start moving. We're counting on our power partners to do everything they can to get us power as quickly as possible, because as you know, that's going to be one of the tough things, is to live without electricity. But more importantly, we've also worked with our sewer and water departments, our agencies, because those are even more critical. It's tough to make it without electricity. It's really tough to make without sewer and water.
Yeah, no question about it. And look, we've seen an enormous number of outside of Louisiana power companies. Yeah, I know we're getting the first gust right now. We've seen a ton of bucket trucks and big power trucks around Tangipahoa Parish in place waiting for this thing to pass. Is that one of the ways we've gotten better at dealing with storms in the last decade, is getting more resources in place beforehand?
It sure seems that way. I've been in office 5.5 years, and in my term, we've had that support. And another real positive of our geographic location for Tangipahoa Parish is that we are the kind of the epicenter for where they launch from. So we have a lot of power companies, a lot of contractors. Entergy pours them in, Demco pours them in. Then we also have the National Guard right up the road in Roseland. So, and then they respond to all of South Louisiana from here. So we have these assets here. They're located here. We don't get all the attention, but it sure helps to have them here for our response, because they might have to clear out and set up to be able to go help other people. They have to get us taken care of first.
And one of the, I guess, slightly weird from how hurricanes work, and I know they're all different, is that the wind coming east to west across Lake Pontchartrain, and all that water in Lake Pontchartrain looks like it's going to be dumping west into your parish. What is your concern for the Manchac area, all of that?
Well, Doug, if we just have a southeast wind, our lower Tangipahoa Parish can start holding water, begin to flood. So with a storm surge like they're talking about pushing in, 20+ inches of rain throughout the whole parish, we're concerned on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the river to be able to get out into the lake, because when the lake's pushed in, Tangipahoa River just begins to flood pretty quickly. I don't know what that's about, but it's not a warning, thankfully. Not yet. So we're, it's a concern for us, obviously, with the storm surge and the amount of water it can push in. But the storm surge leaves. We're just as concerned days later about the rain that we have to deal with, because Tangipahoa River, like I talked about, probably drains 80% of our parish.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, your EOC office right now is full. You've got a ton of people working. What is the plan for the rest of today for you guys?
Well, watch it come in, respond as long as our folks can be safe to get out and help anybody that needs any help. We have all of the partners that keep our parish running, all the emergency managers, all the first responders, Entergy, state police, fire services, Acadian Ambulance, our 911 operators are in here. So we have everybody that's necessary to be able to make a quick response is in this building. It's also a hardened building. It's our safe house. So we're ready to take this storm on through tomorrow morning and then really get to work starting tomorrow.
Robbie, appreciate your time. Good luck. I'm sure we'll be talking to you all day. That's Tangipahoa Parish President Robbie Miller reporting live in a meet. Doug Mouton, Eyewitness News. Send it back to you guys.
Thanks, Doug. Excuse me. I want to talk a little bit more about this tornado warning we've got here. It is going to continue for Bay St. Louis over towards Shoreline, Diamond Head, and Pass Christian. Now, the threat for the tornado has passed Pass Christian. It's now off towards Bay St. Louis and heading into Hancock County. So the part of Harrison County included, you're in the good now. This is to be expected. Anytime you get these outer bands from a hurricane or tropical system, you're going to get tornado warnings, and we do still have that tornado warning. There's been some rotation. I haven't seen anything jumping out too much, but that's not to say a quick spin up tornado certainly can't happen. So anywhere from Diamond Head, there's 43 there rolling into Bay St. Louis. Here's 90 going out of Bay St. Louis. That tornado threat is now moving past there, and I think we're going to be okay. But if you do live at the Kill, and the Kill going down towards I-10 into Bay St. Louis and Waveland, you are going to have to watch for some gusty winds, of course, associated with the tropical system. So, yeah, the tornado warning continues until 6:45, but that threat is coming on down at this point. And overall, that's just what we're going to be watching today. We do have a new tornado watch, which means conditions are favorable for tornadoes Obviously, we got a tropical system on our doorstep. That will go until 7 p.m. The tornado threat for our area will be highest this morning, and then it will start to shift towards the north and east away from us as we go through the day. So the closer the center of the storm gets to you, usually your tornado threat goes down. You don't have tornadoes near the center of hurricanes. So we continue to track Ida. Ida is a major Category 4 hurricane, a significant Category 4 storm with winds 150 miles an hour. And they're going to expire that tornado warning, just a little heads up there, so you're good and you're in the clear in Hancock County. But there it is. There's Ida. And we've been watching its track. Now, you notice it kind of wobbled a little bit, and we've been saying the wobbles here are going to determine who sees landfall. There's the eye. That's the eye wall, the most intense part. We see those bright reds. That's going to be heading up towards parts of Terrebonne, Lafourche, Lower Jefferson, near Plaquemines. The big question right now is who gets the center and who gets right on the edge of those eye walls. Now, it's important to know that winds, even extending this far out, are going to be pretty significant. You could see wind gusts over 100 miles per hour extending out from the eye as this makes its way towards the northwest. So this is going to be a big problem for someone along the Louisiana coast. It is 7 miles per hour away from being a Category 5. A Category 5 is 157 or greater. It's sitting at 150 miles per hour. Going back through the 1900s, we've never had a storm this strong make landfall in southeast Louisiana. This is stronger than Betsy. This is stronger than Katrina was when it made landfall. It was a Cat 3. And then this is stronger than the 1915 hurricane, which was about 145 miles per hour. So this is a storm that many people and no one alive has ever dealt with an intensity like this in southeast Louisiana. So overall, our concern level very, very high for this. Now, we're getting our hourly update, so we'll get our next update from the National Hurricane Center at 7 a.m., so that'll happen probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, and we'll see if this thing continues to intensify. We've been tracking the hurricane hunters here, and that's why I've got my laptop here. It just gives you so much up-to-minute data that I can't show on air, but I can look out here. So we watch the hurricane hunters fly on through this, and they're the ones who have been letting us know that it has continued to weaken or to continue to strengthen. Sheba was talking about earlier, whenever the pressure continues to drop, that's a sign that it's strengthening. So what we'll be telling is the next time the hurricane hunters fly through there, remember, they drop the things out of the planes. That will measure the pressure all the way to the sea surface, and that's how we know exactly what the pressure is doing out here with Ida. But you can see they're taking it through the track. If it travels along that red line, it's headed up to Houma, it's headed up to Thibodaux with the center, but this eye and the eastern eye wall and this intense part of the storm is going to move up and scrape across the coast, and boy, it's going to be a close call for the New Orleans Metro, whether we see 80 to 90 mile per hour winds or if we see 100 to 120 miles per hour. That's a fine detail that's hard to say right now, but it is possible that we do see those significant winds, and you should be planning to see those that much of a significant wind in the New Orleans Metro. At this point, all preparations should have been completed. We've got 100 mile per hour wind gusts just off the coast at this point, down towards the mouth of the river. Grand Isle is currently gusting. Grand Isle is currently gusting, they were gusting to near 50 earlier. I want to go back and see what their gusts are at this point as it gets closer and closer. So the tropical storm conditions are already at our coast. We're gusting to 49 in Grand Isle. And I can't show, I can actually zoom out here. We're gusting to, as you can see there, this is off the mouth of the river, sustained at 87, gusting to 106, sustained at 92, gusting to 104. There's Grand Isle, so this is south. And these are elevated, so the wind is usually a little bit higher when you're elevated because there's no friction. So if you take it to the surface, they're going to be a little bit lower than this. But we've still got significant winds just off the coast and our center of the hurricane right in there. So here's the onshore flow. This is the storm surge problem. You got winds currently pushing off towards the west. We're going to start to see storm surge come on up into the east bank of Plaquemines Parish as we go through the next couple of hours. Then we'll start to really see that storm surge increase later on in the next couple of hours up on the west bank and into Lower Jefferson, creeping up to Jean Lafitte, creeping up into Grand Isle, Port Fourchon. That's as the storm gets in here, it's going to start to push more of a southerly wind, of course, on the east side, and that's going to throw water up into these low-lying areas. Houma, Thibodaux into Terrebonne Bay right now, you still have more of a northerly wind, so your surge is not going to be significant right now, and the track of this is going to determine who sees the most significant surge. Right now, the track would keep the most significant surge for Port Fourchon and Grand Isle, and perhaps not as much for Houma, but still we're forecasting about 8 to 12 feet for Houma and Thibodaux, whereas over here towards Grand Isle and Port Fourchon and up Barataria Bay, we're looking at perhaps up to 16 feet. And that could be a little bit higher. Our forecast right now does not include that recent update of 150 miles per hour. The Hurricane Center, they have special models. They're called slosh models, and that's how we get an idea of how high storm surge could be. They're probably running those right now with the latest data, and I'm hoping we have that in the 7 a.m. advisory on whether or not we're seeing, if we're going to see any higher, storm surge values. There's just so much data coming in at this point, trying to make sure we're getting it all. So you could see it with our buoys out in the Gulf of Mexico. We, of course, don't have as many buoys as we have inland weather stations, but we're sustained at 84 on this buoy that is going to be taking somewhat of a direct hit. It's not reporting a gust, but I'd be curious to see what the gust is. Gust extending pretty far away from the center here, reporting 60 miles per hour as that wind field is continuing to expand slowly, but it is expanding. And this is all headed up towards the north. So that's what we're looking at. Oh, great. We have a live picture from Grand Isle. This is, we're currently gusting to 40 miles per hour. Notice you can still see the beach, so we haven't seen too much surge come in, but boy, it's rough. And what you'll be watching as we go through today, and I hope this camera's not going to survive this storm, I can almost guarantee you. We'll probably lose it at some point. Look at that. That's a wave coming in. And if you've ever experienced storm surge, it's frightening how fast it can happen. So for example, you could be standing here watching this and the water's out here, and then all of a sudden you get this huge gust of wind and it immediately pushes that water. And if that wind gust is 50 miles an hour, that water's coming at you very fast. And then the next thing you know, you're inundated and the water's around you, and you hope it goes back out. But storm surge, it just will keep coming in, and it happens quite frequently, or it happens quite fast. I've experienced it a couple of times. So we'll continue to check back on that image. That's great that we do have eyes down there in Grand Isle. That could end up being close to where ground zero is for Hurricane Ida. So we continue to watch here. The Hurricane Center is going to be putting out their 7 a.m. advisory, and our next update probably in the next couple of minutes here. We're going to be watching that closely, and it'll probably happen before 7 a.m. Hurricane hunters are in there right now, and I'm waiting for them to send back their data that the pressure drop, and if our pressure is continuing to drop, that's not a good thing. We're at the point, though, where regardless of what this thing does, whether it strengthens a little more or weakens a little, it's coming in, and it's going to be a devastating storm for these areas down here along our coast. I hate this. I mean, you're talking lower Lafourche taking the brunt of nearly a Category 5 hurricane all the way up through Lafourche Parish. I mean, this is the track. This means the entire area for Lafourche, up through St. Charles, even close to the New Orleans metro, could see these significant impacts. And then on the west side, you know, a major Category 4 hurricane, nearly Cat 5, it doesn't matter whether you're on the west side or the east side, the significant impacts are going to be there, especially with the wind. So for Houma, Thibodaux, yeah, the center may go over you. You're still going to get the terrible winds. Morgan City, you're going to be on that western eye wall. You could still very well see wind gusts over 120 miles per hour later on today. So just continuing to look at some of this data that's coming in from the Hurricane Center. We'll wait and see what they think. We'll be getting that in about the next 7 minutes or so. All right, I do want to talk about some of these impacts on the latest, and these could certainly change with this next advisory, but this is what we were thinking as of about 5 a.m. With regard to the storm surge threat here. And this is going to be life-threatening storm surge for our coastal areas. 12 to 16 feet. Now, I was telling Eric earlier, now that we have a 150-mile-per-hour hurricane, they put this out when they were forecasting a 145-mile-per-hour hurricane. Now, I'm not sure there's going to be a big difference there. We'll wait and see what the models say, but it is possible that is a little bit higher. That's going to be flying up into lower Jefferson here, and that is going to make its way pretty far into the area. You got to remember, this storm's going to be pushing water in its entire journey through here. So here the water will be more out of the north, but once the storm is here, you've got an easterly wind, or you got a southerly wind, and it's going to continue to be more of a southerly wind as it moves up towards the north.
And Peyton, you know, we have dodged so many bullets, and I think that's why a lot of people stayed maybe this time. This bullet we're not going to dodge.
No.
It's just not going to happen. And I don't think people sometimes understand the gravity of what a storm surge like this and what sustained winds of 150 miles an hour hitting the coast of Louisiana mean? Houma and Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish, they've lost so much of their coastline over the years from storms. We've tried to replenish it, but we can't do anything, you know, at least to bring back what it was 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. It is a big way to protect us. We have lost so much of that. This is going to be devastating if it takes that track.
It is, and it's going to take that track. It's headed there. This is headed towards Houma and Thibodaux. This is, you know, it doesn't get much worse. This is a worst case scenario for some of these areas. You think about all these scenarios when you're talking about hurricanes. What's the worst case scenario for this place, that place? It honestly could not get worse for some of these areas, for Houma, Thibodaux, and down here in lower Lafourche, lower Jefferson. Not only the wind threat, but as you were saying, Eric, the storm surge threat. And the storm surge is already coming up. I'm looking at a video from a friend over in Biloxi. The storm surge is up there, and they're far away from the center. So we are extremely prone to storm surge around here, and it is a significant threat for areas here in southeast Louisiana.
Well, and the thing is that water, when that wind is that strong, it just keeps on pushing and pushing and pushing water up toward the shoreline, into the lake, onto the coast in Mississippi, and it just decimates those marshlands in southeast Louisiana.
Yeah, you know, our marshlands are our first line of defense. I will say, when you start getting up to a Category 4 storm, Cat 5 storm, and you start getting 20 foot of water here, 16 feet of water, there's not going to be a whole lot that can protect you from anything. I mean, the islands out here in Biloxi, or the Mississippi Sound barrier islands here, can't even protect you from, you know, storm surge. These little marshes certainly aren't going to protect you. Where is this at? This is Highway 90 in Hancock County. Oh, so we're in Hancock County here, over in probably Bay St. Louis. We've got squally conditions, people still out. I know there's a mandatory evacuation for Hancock County in the low-lying areas, the Jordan River. A lot of those houses are raised. They can handle 7 to 11 feet, but it's just one of those risks that, you know, if you have cars, things like that. Let's go back to our weather source really quick, because we're going to talk about storm surge here. And where you see the red, or where areas could see 9 feet above the ground. Now, that extends pretty far inland, doesn't it? I mean, you're talking all the way up into central and upper Lafourche Parish, all the way up to Highway 90. Could see significant flooding from this. There's a levee system for around Galliano. That's why it's in the white. All that rainwater, or all that surge coming up into the Houma area, that's 9 feet, and it gets right up close to town. We've got surge values all the way up into Ascension Parish. You've got surge, big problems on the west side of the lake. Of course, in New Orleans, we're protected by the hurricane protection and the levees, and then up on the North Shore, watching for the lake rise. So
yeah, but what the trouble is with here in New Orleans, if it's a ton of rain, if we get the rain that they're talking about, we just got some information from the Sewage and Water Board. They said they're saying they're prepared and ready to respond. Obviously, right now, as of now, 96 of the 99 drainage pumps are available. The pumps that are down are DPS 14 in New Orleans East, DPS 6 in Lakeview, near Metairie Road, DPS 12 in Lakeview, near Marina Drive. And Turbine 4 is now in service. Turbine 5 and 6 are both in service. And they've moved in 4 of those big temporary generators in to help out with the power. And that's one of the things that Councilman Joe Giarrusso was saying the other day, is he's worried about the power, because that's kind of the weak link. Without the power, the pumps don't run. The pumps have to run here, especially if we get the kind of rain that they're protecting and that they're predicting, and that the outer bands that will hit us if that hurricane does go in where you're projecting it. What kind of rain are we talking about here in the city? In Jefferson. Jefferson's going to feel more wind than we are, because they're closer to the eye.
Absolutely. And by the way, what we're going to experience today, it's not really the outer bands. I mean, we'll be right on that core of that system. And, you know, usually we talk about our pumps all the time. We have our summertime storms that pop up, and we'll see significant flooding in some areas. But do you know that happens? When it happens, it's usually in a very isolated area.
We're not trying to scare people. These are the scenarios that are actually possible, and in this case, very plausible, of what could happen with a storm of this magnitude.
Yeah, and this is something you hear every single day, every single hurricane. You're hyping this, you're hyping that. Here's the deal. Someone said, we're from Louisiana, we can handle this. Here's the thing. No one on the coast of Louisiana has ever gone through a hurricane like this in southeast Louisiana in the past 100 years. So no one has gone through a 150-mile-per-hour hurricane at this point. We've had 140. Betsy was 140. That was a long time ago. We've improved a lot of things since then. We had a 145-mile-per-hour hurricane, same location, back in the 1915s. But Katrina was a Buras, Plaquemines Parish kind of landfall. It was a Cat 3. The winds were not this significant, but the storm surge was more significant than Katrina. So some areas down here have not experienced a storm like this, perhaps ever.
And not a direct hit like that with that kind of sustained winds, because there are a lot of people who have camps down around there. It's not as populous as when you get up by Houma or in Thibodaux, places like that. But their levee systems can only handle so much, and with the storm surge that strong and sustained winds as strong as they are, I know that building codes have improved, and you know, you hope that your roof will be able to take it. But there's a lot of old homes all around this area that just weren't built for this kind of wind.
There's a lot of places that aren't. I mean, you start, especially near the coast, where your winds are going to be the most significant. Now, the thing is, yes, this thing's a 150-mile-per-hour storm. We've got winds perhaps gusting over 165, 170. That's going to be for a very specific area. A hurricane intensity is the strongest, the absolute strongest part of the storm, which is usually very small, and then it will start to decrease as you get further away from that point. But if it's a powerful enough storm, it's going to take a while before you get below that destructive part. So winds could be, you know, 100 plus over here in Houma, 120, 130, but they could still very well be 100 miles per hour close to the New Orleans metro. Could be 100 miles per hour plus in the parishes, the river parishes, and up on the North Shore. And we are forecasting that, Eric.
All right, we do have someone from the Army Corps of Engineers on the phone right now. We're trying to get him, and that's one of the things we want to talk about is the levee system, because we know that the levee system is vastly improved here since 16 years ago when we were hit by Katrina. A lot of things are different, but we didn't have a storm like this coming in. And again, we're talking about the storm surge, and what do you expect to see at the 7 a.m. update? Because we're only a few minutes away from that.
We're waiting to see, and I think that's why they're waiting so long. They're waiting to get that data in from the Hurricane Hunter plane before they send out their advisory. And we're waiting to see, is the pressure still dropping in this